chomping at the bit. So we're going to go straight to it. Redrame, he's locked in the play position. Knoebility is also ready to rock and roll. So we're going to take you to that match right now.
Okay, I'm joined with Joe, and we see this first game. It looks like Knoebility is loading in, deciding between a Henselt and a Brewer list. Looks like a relatively standard Scorch Henselt with the inclusion of Bloody Baron. We'll have to see exactly what this is when we load in.
Yeah, the Bloody Baron is a particularly interesting card. The Henselt deck's able to remove several of their opponent's units with the power of all their machines. It can grow quite large. I think it's an interesting choice in this,
It looks like Redrame is going to be playing from this position
full
of
comfort
this entire time. He's just going full, like, poolside lounging mode over here.
And it looks like we'll be getting you back to the game shortly, just showing off the prize a little bit.
Yep.
Remind everyone what they're playing for.
Here we go. It looks like it's going to be a Henselt mirror match. Now, this is particularly interesting. We saw the Baron in Knoebility's deck, and we also know that Redrame is running his very own Bloody Baron as well. So both players playing Baron variant Henselt decks. Is going to be a competition to see how many units each player can kill.
Sure, and it's also going to be very interesting to see what the Scorches are going to hit. I think Final Say is going to mean quite a bit when you can consider Scorches. You can play around your opponent's potential Villain Trettenmirth. These high-strength units aren't particularly strong against Henselt, so I think the player who gets the last say is going to be a large favorite here.
Now, what do you think about this matchup, Joe? What do you think are the biggest deciders for the mirror match for Henselt? I regard it as one of the most skillful matchups, I think, in the entire game.
I completely agree. It is a very difficult matchup to pilot. I think the two main points here are not proccing your opponent's light cavalry, playing around that for the large majority of the game, so you really want to stay ahead, but only within a certain point gap.
Keep it in mind every turn.
Yes, you have to keep it in mind every turn. If you can brick your opponents and sort of force some dead draws left into their deck and just not give them that 12 points of free value, it is a very big deal.
Yep. So we see Knoebility having to go first here, thinking about playing the Ronvid off the bat. Of course, Redrame would have the answer of ADC into Taller, because of course you play for those Dun Banner cavalries coming out. The variants of the deck are going to look pretty similar. It looks like both players are rocking very, very similar lists.
Yeah, and they also both have great hands. This is sort of what you want to see. I think play skill is going to play a large factor in determining the winner of this match. Both players have some golds in their hand. They both have Ronvid, which is really the center engine of this deck, just adding so much value to each machine that's going to come down.
Redrame here blowing the ADC. He's putting the Taller on Knoebility's side, and of course Knoebility knows without a doubt that if he doesn't Taller back, those 4 strength units are all coming out of Redrame's deck immediately. The Taller to counter, which of course flips it back in the favor, and again, both players are going to be trying to stay within 21 points of their opponent when they're behind. Nobody wants to exceed that 21 mark because that's when they come out.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the large mini-game, or sub-game, if you will, going on throughout the entire match. So as a viewer, I would certainly keep an eye on the total point gap, because it really is a very big deal if one player is able to proc it.
It's almost like one of those little slow-motion races, you know, both players are trying to keep their score very contained here, because if you surge too far ahead, you will be met with a free, immediate 12 points of value, and that, like you said, is probably the biggest deciding factor of this matchup.
So what do you think, with both players holding Selkirk, how aggressively do you like to use your Selkirk in this type of mirror matchup to remove potential Henselt targets, maybe try and brick your opponents?
Well, when you have removal, there's kind of two different things you can do with it here. You can try to save multiple forms of removal for a later round to try to deny a Henselt in a relatively short round, or you can be much more aggressive with it. And both players are actually looking at different board states here, because Redrame's Taller that he played on Knoebility's side was ADC'd out. They both have different strengths in terms of the Selkirks that they both have in hand. So we'll have to see if they choose to approach that a little differently. We're going to see the Winch from Knoebility. This plays the Reinforced Ballista, and he might actually be inclined to play it outside of the crewman. He's thinking about it because, of course, he can align them. He plays it into the crewman, hits the Taller twice in this case.
Yeah, this is a very interesting play, and he's able to hit the Taller here, mostly because he knows that the Scorch in his hand is not nearly as valuable as a potential Scorch from his opponent, being that he has the larger strength unit on the board. The player in this matchup who is able to ADC their Thaler out, as we see the Scorch come down here, it's sort of the first jab in the boxing match that is this.
That's going to be a big deal. And the second thing to consider, in addition to, of course, not being more than 20 points ahead at any given time for both players, his Knoebility has to stay ahead of Redrame every turn because, of course, he is on the play, which means if he doesn't stay ahead of Redrame every turn, Redrame will have the pass that forces Knoebility out of round 1 and oftentimes out of the game.
Yeah, if one player is ever able to force the other player into position to give up 2 cards, I think they're going to snap off the opportunity, as card advantage is just so important, particularly when you're playing such similar strength cards, in this case, a lot of the exact same cards.
Yep. So this game is really going to be truly about controlling your own points in an extremely, extremely precise way. Here's Knoebility playing out the Siege Master. This is going to be hitting the Ballista, giving 3 shots, and it looks like he's reducing both of them to 7, unless he decides to hit the Thaler to 5 instead. There it is.
So what do you think about, do you think that this means Knoebility is potentially looking to Hensel round 1 to establish a large point gap, or do you think this is a bluff?
We'll have to see how it goes. I mean, again, there's actually a few different ways to play this out. It's a very, very, very nuanced matchup, and it just completely depends how you want to use Hensel. Now, Redrame, in terms of the Hensel, is very much in the driver's seat, because A, he swung for tempo with the Scorch, and B, he has the coin on his side. If he surges ahead with Hensel, Knoebility can't do as much against it. So I would say, if we're going to see Hensel this round, it will more likely be Redrame.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. He's just such an, obviously, a relaxed position, as you can see, both in the game and in his chair.
And it is truly just an assertion of dominance there. I mean, when you look over past your monitor and your opponent is just, you can't even see his face. He's literally almost horizontal here.
Strikes fear into the eyes of the enemy.
Yeah, and there's Knoebility. You can see the look of concern there already. Here's the Death Mold, and he has a few options with it. If he is scared of this Hensel, which he might be, he could take an aggressive zap on it. He could try to play it for rain to play for value over time, although of course that doesn't overtake Redrame's score here. And keep in mind, Knoebility has to play at least a 7, otherwise threatening a fantastic pass from Redrame.
Yeah, it's just absolutely crucial that he continues to pass him each and every turn and rations out these powerful tools. Committing the Death Mold here might deny the potential for a Hensel here, but that's one less tool he has to remove in a machine later in the round.
Ronvid instead. Now, Ronvid is going to come back, but it's going to be a turn later, which means Redrame has no crewman this turn, and specifically, you see the Knoebility's Baron is buffed by 1 point instead, but Redrame still remains very much in the driving seat of this situation. It's going to be up to him to decide exactly how this goes out, and if he's able to slam that Hensel round 1, and he's thinking about it even right now. If he's able to slam that Hensel round 1, he puts himself at a huge advantage. I think it clears up Knoebility's options for being able to Hensel back immediately.
Yeah, I completely agree. I wonder, it looks like he's done the math, and he's going to go with the Hensel here. Do you think this is going to put him above that 20-point gap that we've spoken about being
Absolutely.
so important?
This is pulling 3 battering rams. He is saying, I don't care about your light cavalries. I don't care about that 12 points. I am slamming this power on the board. We're going to see the Dun Banner cavalries coming out from Knoebility next turn, but he has no Hensel to counter. His board is devastated.
Yeah, what's he really going to do from this position? And I think that's why Redrame made this play.
Exactly.
He knows there's no counterplay that's going to overtake him in 1, so he's forcing his opponent to choose between 2 bad options. Either spend 2 cards to catch back up, or just to pass and lose the round on even.
And he doesn't have to worry about these cavalries for the rest of the game when Knoebility still does. This is a huge deal. Knoebility has a position where he needs to play for more value. He sees the line on the Scorch for the 6s that Redrame does as well. Huge swing, and he scorches 5 units off of Redrame's side.
That's basically the only card in the game that does that for him
and
right there,
there's that
right?
Baron going to 15,
Yeah.
and Redrame already committed 1 Scorch.
Yeah, that is a very big deal here. I'm not so sure that he expected that play to come down. We saw a little smirk on his face. He's like, yeah, you got me there.
And it is impossible to tell if Redrame is even set off of kilter from that because, of course, he's just so relaxed himself.
Yeah, he hasn't budged an inch.
So Redrame is still, even after that Scorch, even after the 15-point Baron in Knoebility's hand, he still is in control of round 1. I mean, if Knoebility ever exceeds him, he has to play around light cavalries, and Redrame still just has to stay ahead of Knoebility every turn to keep putting more pressure on him, because he is 1 card up.
So while the light cav situation is very much favoring Redrame, you have to give credit to the fact that Knoebility does still have the major tempo play and Henselt available, right? This is going to be one of the key points. If he's able to get that off, I think that's his way to fight back into this game.
That's exactly right. I think that's a very astute point as well. It's really going to be if Knoebility can use that Henselt. I think with the Baron as well and Redrame's deck not running his own villain Shrettenmirth and that Baron being unanswered because Redrame already committed the Scorch will be a big deal. Redrame's own Baron, if he draws it later, will not be as big.
Yeah, it's interesting. There seems to be multiple dynamics in favor of each player here, which I think is going to make for a great game as you talk about the Baron. But then if you look at Redrame's hand, he's got multiple ways to remove machines, being the Death Mold with the Alzur's Thunder and the Selkirk
And I think he might be playing for that. Here's the battering ram. This is a tell at this point. It is probable that Redrame knows that the Baron is coming out. He's also denying crewman for one turn, and Redrame thinking about using the Death Mold there. Now, I think you might be right. I think it really comes down to whether Redrame wants to play against the Henselt here, because Knoebility is the one with the Henselt remaining, which means Redrame is the one that has the ability to preserve these removals for it. Here it is denying the Henselt proactively in the same way that Knoebility used his Death Mold.
Yeah, I like this play a lot here by Redrame. He had thought about it, mulled it over, and I think he came to the correct conclusion that allowing his opponent to Henselt in this position is probably not favorable for him. There is a school of thought where you could say, well, at least he gets the Henselt out of the way, and I'll be up my card, but I do like denying it here.
Exactly. Although Redrame will not often be able to deny all of Knoebility's Henselt targets. The Selkirk on Redrame's hand will be able to kill the Ballista, but the John and Talus is always going to be pulling out a Winch or a Reinforcements, which is going to give Henselt the target he needs. So Redrame can definitely bully Knoebility into using it, although he won't be able to deny it entirely in this round.
Yeah, we're starting to see him run low on resources here, so I'm very curious. Do you think he's going to commit the Selkirk here? I think he has to think long and hard about that one.
Yeah, he really does. I mean, it really comes down to how much he wants to bank on the Henselt not having another target and how much he wants to play for this round. Keep in mind that if Knoebility were to use Henselt to force this round, he would still have to go one card down to do it, which is a big deal. It means that while Knoebility maintains last play in round 3, he doesn't necessarily have to threaten as much to do it.
Yeah, and the last play in round 3 from Knoebility's side means slightly less than it did at the start of the match, because as you talked about, Swim, the Scorch is now gone from Redrame, so that Baron is looking a lot safer. It's a great way to bank some points.
Redrame makes the call to preserve the Selkirk. I gotta say, I really agree with this one, Joe. This matchup, as we've said, this is a super heady matchup. It is all about just meticulously conserving and using your resources at the right time to gain just that little bit of edge over it, and I think the decision to save that Selkirk here is a really big deal.
Yeah, I really like the decision here as well. It's just such a powerful tool in round 3. This is one of the cards that might not look so impressive on its surface, but it plays so much better than it looks. When you slam it down, basically remove any target, often leaving a medium to large size body behind. Selkirk's a very powerful card.
Here's the Talus coming out from Knoebility. He has the Henselt on the Ballista as well. It's going to be how he wants to play this. Keep in mind, he has to stay ahead of Redrame's score, so he has to play at least a 13. The Natalis pulling a machine, or the Henselt pulling ballistas. Here it comes. Henselt pulls 2 ballistas, hitting all of the 6s and 4s. Unfortunately, though, he can't actually kill these units to buff the Baron. It's a bit awkward because they'll all be left at 1, which means if Redrame takes the pass, the Baron does not get buffed off these.
Look at that near perfect point gap, though. He has not triggered the light cavalry of his opponent, making it a very, very hard play for him to overcome here. I think that was masterfully played there by Knoebility.
Yep, I completely agree. And again, keep in mind, Redrame's Baron is just not going to be as big as Knoebility's, and Redrame no longer has an answer for Knoebility's Baron. This 17-point gold is going to be the biggest difference in this matchup, unless, of course, it is able to pull out Redrame's light cavalries. That's one of the biggest deal in round 3. Knoebility will have to be very careful about drawing those out because they are not out yet.
Yeah, that Scorch may have happened in round 1, but it's going to impact the rest of the game.
Exactly.
Besides just the 30-point swing that it initially came through with, you can almost think of it as sort of 5 points of carryover banking on the Baron.
And Redrame is committing to play this deeper. That is a dangerous move. We will have to see the Natalis come out if he is able to get any kills off of this battering ram winch into Ballista. This Baron is going huge.
Yeah, it's going to get quite large here. Knoebility also does have the option to pass, I don't know how much deeper he's comfortable going into this round, and I think that's what he's thinking about here, because all of the cards in his hand are very powerful. Yes, they're very committal.
You don't necessarily want to use Natalis here, but of course, buffing the Baron by an extra 5 points and forcing out the round is something you can do. It's a bit of a risk because he doesn't have any ballistas left in his deck, so he needs to winch, and he is hungry for a ballista. Does he find it? He winches. He finds the ballista. And this devastates Redrame's board. Now, this will force out the light cavalries, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. He doesn't have to worry about them anymore. Here they come. Aye, aye, sir. 17 points to Redrame. Can he break the score? Does he have the 16?
Well, it's going to be tough here, right? It's looking like Selkirk is basically maxing out at 14, his 8, and there's nothing bigger than a 6 to remove, which is a little bit rough. I suppose he's considering the Shani. What's the best Shani target he's currently got? He's got a lot of machines in there, right?
Yeah, he does. And keep in mind, Ronvid is coming back at the end of the turn as well, since it died. Here's the Shani rezzing the Siege Master. This is going to redeploy. It can kill all of these 2s. He is buffing his own Baron, and the Ronvid comes back, staying ahead cleanly by 5.
Yeah, he takes the lead here. This has been a real knock him down, drag him out round 1 here.
Yeah. And this is Knoebility's round to win whenever he wants to, because of course he has the powerhouse hand, but he can hardly commit all these resources to do it. I mean, he does not have a choice. He cannot play Baron this round because it is far too much his win condition. If he plays a Selkirk, and if Redrame is able to stay ahead with Winch, that's a Selkirk for Winch trade, because Knoebility can't force this round beyond that.
Yeah, it's a huge deal here. He really has to consider at what cost he's willing to expend to try and win this round.
If you're Knoebility, do you pass here?
Ooh, it's so close.
I think you might just have to give it up. Playing even the Selkirk is pretty risky. I mean, what are you forcing out?
You're right. I mean, it feels so bad, but at a certain point, you just have to cut your losses. Sunken cost fallacy. Realize that it doesn't get better for you from here. This might be the pass.
That's exactly right. A beautiful pass by Knoebility.
That's a really good play.
I gotta say, I'm really liking the plays of Knoebility here. This is one of the most skill-intensive decks in the entire game. We see both players piloting it very effectively. We go into round 2, Knoebility losing the round on even cards.
That was a very disciplined play there. I'm definitely impressed by the play we're seeing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We'll have to see how this goes. Knoebility is 1 card down, and that's a very, very big deal. And his Baron is only 2 points bigger. His Redrame's Baron managed to grow quite a bit off that last ballista tick.
Yeah, so what do you expect to see here, Swim? Do you think that we're just going to see it? Yep.
There's the dry pass.
You got to take the card here, right?
Knoebility has to keep playing into this. He has the Battering Ram, which gives him an extra point on the Baron. I think you probably just take that unless the ADC is pulling out something more favorable. I don't know if there's a Naneki in Knoebility's deck, but I think the Battering Ram here is the definite play.
No, I'm not seeing a Naneki on the list, so it looks like that Alzur's Double Cross might just be hitting a machine. I do think Battering Ram is the clear line here. He just wants to make sure he's played this game almost flawlessly so far, despite the fact that he's going to be down a card going into round 3. Yeah. So he's taking his time thinking about his plays, making sure that that's the proper call.
He's got 3 points on the Baron, but he is down a card. He doesn't have last play, and both players have decently reactive stuff. Selkirk and machines. It looks like Redrame is too in control of this situation, I think.
Yeah, I think he's a heavy favorite here. Just being up that card it's huge. It's everything here.
Exactly.
Especially when all your cards are so similar.
Yep, and especially when you need to be able to play reactively. Normally, it doesn't as much matter who has first play, unless, of course, A, you have something that you need to play last, or B, you have such reactive potential. Like, look at Knoebility's hand here. There's nothing he wants to play first. If you play the Baron, you could run into the possibility of something that...
Like Villain Trenton?
Yeah, of course. Although, given Redrame's position, Knoebility can save the Selkirk to try to kill it at the end if he's playing around it, which, of course, we know Redrame doesn't have it. What do you do here?
I don't know. You brought up a very good point, Swim. In this situation, it's almost like the first play is more of a downside than not having the last play. What do you do to an open board here? What if this is a Battering Ram or a Ballista, something like that? He's just looking at an 8-point card.
There it is. It's Siege Master, and you are just losing value. Not coming on the same row as Ronvid is a little unfortunate there as well. I think both players are playing very equally in this situation, but Redrame just has the upper hand.
Yeah, this is all coming directly from the advantage that Redrame started the game with, because both players have played phenomenally throughout this match.
Yeah, when it's such an equally balanced game, when it is very, very similar decks, almost carbon copies, and both players playing at a very high level, it will come out to that small difference of being able to play more reactively off the coin.
Yeah, that's what happens when you see high-level play versus high-level
Exactly.
play. Every little minor edge that you can get and eke out over your opponent really starts to show through.
That's exactly right. So Redrame finding the way to play proactively on the empty board, winching out the Trebuchet here. Here comes the Selkirk. Knoebility is not afraid of Villain Trettenmirth, and he's just going to play this on the Reinforced Trebuchet. This will swing for 16, clean up one source of engine from Redrame, and knock Knoebility's Baron up to a 24.
Yeah, getting that extra point on the Baron is exactly the type of thing he needs here. Every kill is very much favoring him. That's pretty much his only path to victory, is if his Baron is that much bigger than his opponent's because he is down that card.
Yep, and we're going to have to see what both players' reinforcements pull. Looks like Knoebilities is just going to be pulling a machine. Redrame opting to Selkirk immediately, cleaning him up. His own Baron growing as well. Knoebility countering with reinforcements. He still does have a couple of machines, and I think one Siege Master left in his deck. We'll have to see what he pulls out, but I don't think there's anything that can overcome this card difference.
Yeah, I don't think any of the machines are going to get him out of this spot here. Despite how well he played, it looks like he's unfortunately going to be in the disadvantaged position of going down a game unless something very out of the ordinary happens.
Yep. So we're going to see Knoebility dropping the Baron. He knows he doesn't have the last play, so of course there's no reason to hold on to this any longer. Redrame in a similar position. He could drop his own Baron as well, opting instead, looking like to use reinforcements. He's just pulling out another bronze card from his deck at this point, likely.
Yeah, I think that's what he's going for here. He's just going to save his Baron for last play. Like you said, there's not really a reason to play around anything, but also there's no real reason for Redrame to play his Baron here, right?
That's exactly right. So Knoebility is going to reinforcement. He is going to dig for a bronze machine. He has the battering ram, but it's not going to be enough, unfortunately. Redrame has huge cleanup, healing his battering ram and playing his own Baron, and that is going to be enough to lock out this first game of the best to 3, or best out of 3.
That being said, look how close this game ended up, even with Redrame having the additional card here.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, the extra points on the Baron was almost enough to make the difference here.
Close, but not quite. That Ballista that Redrame hit earlier in round 1 might have made the difference here, buffing his own Baron, getting it into the same sort of range.
And he sacrificed some points by doing that as well, because he had a better line on the 6s.
Definitely.
It was very close. Knoebility had the Scorch. That Scorch was just almost enough to bail him out, but it will be going to the next game of this set. Redrame taking it, which means he is no longer able to play his Henselt deck, and Knoebility is still able to play his own.
So he's going to be playing his last unbanned deck here, which could be Bruver Hoog, or it looks like it could also be Dagon. I'm curious to see what his opponent's strategy was in the ban phase of this round.
Yeah, we don't have the bans pulled up here, so we will just have to see when the players load in to select their decks. What do you think about those matchups, though, compared to Henselt against the Henselt that Knoebility still has remaining?
Well, it's interesting. In general, I like the Dagon in particular against Henselt a lot. I like Dagon a lot. His list is a little bit on the spicy side, as we said earlier, so there's some interesting dynamics there. I don't think you want to bring your Bruver Hoog to the Henselt slaughter. The Ballisters tend to be very, very powerful there.
Yes, that's exactly right. I mean, that is a nightmare matchup for any Elf Swarm.
Yeah, the Elves just do not like machines.
So it looks like players are meticulously selecting their decks here. Redrame is just maintaining his level of comfort. Look at this man. This is peak levels of comfort here.
We got to get a lazy boy in the feature match area.
And here it is, Redrame's final deck he needs to win with. This is his Bruver Hoog versus Knoebility's Henselt again. And as you just said, this is an Elf Swarm style deck. These Ballistas are going off huge in this match.
Yeah, and we can see he's got the Ballistas in his opening hand, so it's not a question of not having access to them. I definitely think Knoebility is very happy to see the Bruver come up on this side here.
That's exactly right. So here's the mulligan. We see Redrame's opening hand running a Siri Nova kind of Elf Mulligan Swarm variant with a Bruver as a leader choice. We'll have to see how this plays out. And of course, he has the Milena, which indicates Isengrim as well.
Yeah, and a lot of Henselt's plays coming up here get even more powerful. This time, unfortunately for him, last round he was on the blue coin. On the red coin,
exactly.
Things like Taller get infinitely more, well, not infinite, but get more powerful.
Yeah, Henselt's ability to both play reactively and at the same time, but different, punish the opponent for playing proactively with the Taller, with the Dunbanner like Cavalries, with the Scorch. You are getting an insane amount of value. Here's the Elven Merc Redrame developing his board with a Recon chain out on Mercs. We're going to see how deep this goes exactly as he pulls out even more.
Yeah, the thinning is very important for this style of deck here. And like, he's not even done. 4 bodies on turn 1. That's quite the little chain. I think the thinning is very important in his style of deck. As we can see, he is running Siri Nova. And when you have to make such stringent requirements on your deck to play a card as powerful as Siri Nova, you want to make sure you're hitting it as often as possible. So thinning, I think, is at even more of an advantage in this type of matchup.
That's exactly right. Unfortunately for him, of course, the little 1-strength units are only feeding Nobility's eventual Baron. We see the Taller come out from Nobility. This is going to threaten the Dunbanners, but Redrame has access to Yavin with Broover, and we'll see it as a counter. Here's the Scorch Draw from Nobility, followed by Redrame's Broover into Yavin, a clean and reliable counter. The Brooven's Tutor for the Spy coming in huge, huge value there, because of course if you don't have your own Spy in this situation, you are done for.
Yeah, this is a huge deal here. This is basically a forced play. This will be the easiest play he makes in the entire tournament. If you don't play your Spy there, you are far behind.
That's exactly right. And it goes back to Nobility. Keep in mind, we are playing for the Dunbanner like Cavalries. Nobility needs to ensure that Redrame ends up a little bit ahead in points, but Redrame is cleanly staying within that 20-point threshold.
Yeah, that's one of the ways Redrame might be able to overcome how bad this matchup is for him. If he's able to not proc the the Dunbanners, and they stay in the deck list, potentially giving his opponent some dead draws later in the game if there's a couple of unfortunate draw steps, that's one of the ways he can look to potentially climb back into this game.
And I gotta say, I really like that Death Mold there, cleaning up the Hawker Smuggler, taking the last chance he had to clean that up, because of course it grows to 9 off the Death Mold.
Yes, just before it got out of control.
Yep. Back to Redrame, and if Redrame, it's going to be a bit of a game of chicken with these 1-strength units, right? Because, of course, Redrame wants to buff them with Vanguard before Nobility kills them, but Nobility kind of wants Redrame to play a couple more before to set up more of his own before he kills them as well.
Exactly. We might see some really interesting plays with the Vanguards actually buffing these units before you would normally see it.
Exactly.
Usually the play is to get as many elves as
or
possible.
Nobility killing them before you usually see
exactly.
it. One or the other. A real game of chicken here.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see how the players perceive what they want to do in this round 1. And now Redrame does have the information that his opponent is 100% playing Bloody Baron. It's not what you would call an auto-include card in Hensel, but now that he knows about it, trying to keep his units alive has a little bit of additional value.
Absolutely. And here is the Millennium play from Redrame. This threatens a bit from Nobility's side. We'll have to see if he predicts that. The timing does a bit indicate it. Here's the reinforcements as an option. Electing instead for the Alzer's Double Cross. This is going to pull out the Ronvid, of course. The typical proactive play, he's not afraid of any sort of Scorch effects because he has his Taller on his own. The biggest question here, though, is the Redrame flip from Millenna going to be enough to trigger the Dunbanner Light Cavalries?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably what's going through his head here, but I don't think there's too much of a choice. I really agree with him getting out the Ronvid here, as getting it down as early as possible just increases the power of so many of your plays in this deck. Him being a crewman that's incredibly hard to remove off the board makes all of your other plays so much better. I like the line he's taking here.
That's going to be right as well. We'll have to see that Millenna is going to flip after Nobility's next turn. It will likely scoop up the Death Mold, and there's Redrame just playing another ambush unit, of course, being the Vreehead Sappers. So if you're Nobility, you're operating with a lot of missing information here.
Yes. It's really hard to put your opponent on exactly what ambushes those are. You do see sometimes Teruvial, you see Millenna, you see Sappers. Interesting to note, he doesn't know that the Alarin, which is basically an auto-include in these style decks, isn't in his opponent's hand yet, as there are not 5 elves on the field yet. I'm curious to see what he does with that information when he gets it. What do you think, Swim?
Yeah, we'll have to see when that comes out. I think that Aileron just might be enough to push it over the Dunbanner line. I really think that when these ambushes are flipping, the Aye Sirs are going to be coming out. I think ultimately, though, that the biggest thing about this game, now that both players have expended their spies, is who wins round 1, of course, because whoever wins round 1 gets guaranteed last play in round 3, unless, of course, any ward answers happen, which means that the Scorch will be available on the Nova, or it won't be.
Yeah, do you think there's any possible potential that maybe if Redrame is able to win this round, he's potentially able to bleed the Baron out of his opponent's hand, or is that thinking that thinking too optimistic?
Well, it could be as well, or possibly we could see the opposite. It's possible that Knoebility could win and bleed the Nova. Although, of course, if you do win and there's not a Ward answer, you typically just secure last place. You can Scorch it instead.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. He's getting the nice little buff on all of the units in his hand. Well, he still has a reasonable sized hand. Oftentimes earlier you can get the Yorvith down to buff as many elves as possible. It's a very good thing. We also see the Barclay L still sitting in his hand. He hasn't pulled out what we assume to be the Cleaver quite yet. And since he's looking to mulligan the Ward Dancer, his mulligan situation could get kind of dicey, particularly with that Elrond. What do you think about this?
That's exactly right. It's going to come down to both players' plays here. As soon as the Sappers flips, it is the 5th elf. The Aileron will not be coming out, of course, because Redrame drew it to the hand. But as soon as it comes out, Knoebility will be effectively behind a total of 17 points. So it's going to be up to him. He won't be able to search too far ahead. Here's the Ballista. This is going to do a great job at denying the Vanguards, but he's playing it with the Winch instead. Finds the Ballista as an option off the Winch. Electing to use it, and here it is. He has the chance to kill the ones. He declines it, favoring a higher value play of potentially playing deeper. Do you think this is very punishable, though?
Yeah, I do think it's sort of punishable. Honestly, after watching his prowess with the deck last game, I imagine he has a plan for this. I certainly would have taken the chance to kill all the little small elves there, but what do you think about that play? It's quite curious.
Yeah, I mean, it's really going to come down to exactly the amount of risk and reward you're getting there, right? Because even if he plays the Vanguards down, you still have the Ballistas to kind of clean them up at 2 strength anyway. You lose a bit of value, but it's not necessarily a huge deal. And you've got the alignment on the 4s. I think he's taking a risk and might feel that he needs to take that risk in his position.
It might almost be a tell for Redrame as well, right? Because if his opponent didn't have access, if Knoebility didn't have access to more Ballistas, I do think that he probably would have killed the elves there to start getting the bluff on the Baron. So if Redrame is paying close attention, I think he could safely put his opponent on having access to more Ballistas in his hand.
You know what as well, it also increases the odds of getting those Dunbanner-like Calvaries out, which might be exactly how Knoebility is thinking. Obviously, this player, Knoebility, is a Henselt expert. He's playing this deck very well, and you do have the ability to, even when the Vanguards get played out, swing back the favor with a single Siege Master or a single Ballista between 2 Siege Masters, and when you do that, you can recover from pretty much anything, and maybe he just wants to get those Light Cavalries out.
Yeah, I mean, this is very true, but on the other coin, this is a great matchup here. Look at Redrame masterfully getting up by exactly 20 points.
Exactly.
So I think this is a Henselt or pass here from Knoebility.
And this is huge value. He is going to go ahead and immediately smash down all of these little cards. He has the double Crewman Ballista coming in, followed by the single Crewman Ballista. So he can fire off a grand total of 5 shots here. He's going to go ahead and kill all of the little units, it looks like, and bump the 7s down as well.
Yeah, here we go. The elves are starting to die. The Baron's starting to get larger. He's effectively just putting points into his big round 3 finisher. Also just denying the board size of Redrame here. Now, the Henselt didn't put him super far ahead, so this round is still competitive. You're not forcing a pass out of Redrame. What do you expect him to do next?
Well, as we can see, Knoebility really has control of this situation. He has the hand that he can push with. Redrame is sitting on a War Dancer and an Aileron. He can't push with these. His elves are getting denied. Knoebility will be able to win this round, even on even cards at any given point, and I think he's just in complete control of this situation. The fact that he can win it on even cards means he completely negates the War Dancer value because they still go to round 3 on even cards. Knoebility still has the last play for the Scorch on the Nova. If his Baron isn't big enough, there's almost, interestingly enough, a call to keep that Baron under 22 points, Joe.
I couldn't agree more. I think Redrame is desperately grasping for a pass here. That's why you sort of see the last big play he has left besides the Siri Nova, which he really does not want to part with here. And yeah, I think he's probably keeping track of the exact size of the Baron. That would be very interesting if that comes to pass.
That is the kind of play that you expect any master level Henselt player to do.
I agree.
Knoebility's turn again. He's got the choice between his bronzes here, whichever he wants to expend to just close this gap even further and bully Redrame out. It's truly the same situation that Redrame had him in last game, and is flipping right around as Knoebility is just saying, you know what, I'm not very happy about that. Let me just do the same exact thing to you.
Yeah, the tables have turned, and Knoebility's now feeling real good about his position. I think he's in such a great spot. He's basically figuring out what his worst cards are that he can play to preserve as much power going forward while staying ahead on even cards. And I think that's going to be the likely outcome of this round.
Yep, and keep in mind, he has the Dijkstras as well. This is going to be very interesting. The Dijkstra is a bit of a committal choice in this deck, typically, because if you haven't pulled out your Dunbanner like Cavalries, the Dijkstra could be pulling them out for you. And as we can see, the Dunbanners do exist in Nobility's deck, so we'll have to see. He might be in a bit of a pinch if he can't pull them out early, and looks like he's really forcing Redrame out.
Yeah, the DJ Extra being in his list really adds a whole nother layer to the sub-game that's already being played about not proccing the Dunbanners, because that could turn this incredibly powerful gold card that's going to pull 2 of your synergistic bronzes or silvers or whatever he finds on top of the deck. He could just be a 4-point gold if he happens to pull 2 Dunbanners.
Yep, here's the Vanguard coming out from Redrame, staying up 1 point ahead, but Knoebility will smash this Siege Master. I think that will force Redrame out of the round when it happens, and this makes the Baron even bigger. How big is this Baron, Joe? Do you think he's actually at risk of putting it above this Nova?
He might be. I don't think it's quite there yet, but we still have a little bit more game to go. I do agree with you that Redrame is probably going to pass here. I mean, just look at this hand. It doesn't get anywhere. He's in a tough spot. He is in a very, very tough spot, unless he wants to commit that Nova.
Well, he's got the War Dancer ready to bail him out of this situation. While Knoebility was able to win on even cards, which in Gwent is absolutely massive, we are going to see this 4th strength War Dancer coming out, blocking Knoebility's ability to dry pass him here and getting that card advantage back. But there's a second War Dancer draw from Redrame. He is not happy about that, Joe.
That is just so tough for him to see here, particularly because he has another card in the Aileron that he really needs to mulligan out of his hand.
And that Aileron isn't going to be pulled out from having enough elves as well. Now, he did draw the Saskia, and Saskia is the tool he can mulligan these away with, but this deep, because round 1 went so deep, this Aileron is not going to find enough elves to come out, probably for the rest of the game.
Yeah, he would need Elven Scout into quite the chain, multiple times probably, to be able to pull that Aileron. I think we're very unlikely to see it here. I think the Saskia is a super important draw, though, because one of the main problems was how clunky his hand feels with multiple cards he wants to mulligan and only 1 mulligan left. So I think the Saskia is going to put in some work here.
But on the other hand, we have Knoebility with the Dunbanner Light Cavalry in his hand as well. Both players operating under some awkward draws. We're seeing Knoebility play for a bit of tempo. I actually really love this play. I think Knoebility will turn this into a bleed, Joe. I think he's going to be playing the Dunbanner out, and he's expecting Redrame to stay ahead, but by doing this first, by making this play first, even though you're going to transition into a bleed later, you force the tempo out, right?
Yeah,
you bluff that you're playing for tempo, and then you switch it up with the Dunbanner.
That's a perfect way to put it. He's effectively giving his opponent no information here, and I just continue to be impressed by the plays of Knoebility. I think it's even theoretically possible that he gets the Nova out of his opponent here. Maybe with his opponent passing with 3 cards left in his hand in round 1, he was able to put Redrame on potentially not having a handful of cards he wanted to expend, like the actual hand he had.
That's exactly right. Very clean plays as well. And we can pretty much be sure that Knoebility isn't going to give this round up without playing the Dunbanner out. But again, playing for more tempo is an option for this as well. He can Battering Ram, he can kill off that War Dancer, get a bit of value, and force just a little bit more out of Redrame as well. He's got the last play, and he has the Scorch on the Nova unless his own Baron draw blocks it.
Yeah, here's the thing. He doesn't have guaranteed access to the Baron yet, though, right? He's sort of relying on Dijkstra over here to pull it out of his deck. And with 7 cards, assuming no additional thinning, that'll be down to 6 cards after his round 3 draw. It's far from guaranteed. He doesn't have a ton of points to throw on his own board. This might be a little dicey.
Exactly. So we have the Dunbanner coming out from Knoebility, and of course, since he's opting for this kind of tempo into bluff almost and just like pulling back on the tempo hard strategy, we know that this is a sign that means he's about to pass Redrame, about to play the Elven Scout. He's looking for an option that gives him value into the next round, something that buffs something in his hand, or a Mahakam Defender to stay on the board. Does he find one?
Carry over a hand buff would be huge here, and he misses. Yeah, the create didn't go his way. That's definitely not what he was looking for here. I fully expect to see the pass from Knoebility unless he really doesn't value that Scorch. But once you see your opponent's deck, you can safely assume it's Nova, so that Scorch has a lot of value in his hand.
I think so as well. We could see a pretty incredibly YOLO Dijkstra, but I don't think we're going to see that. Knoebility takes the pass. Round 3, Knoebility has final say. This is absolutely crucial in this one, Joe.
So who's been counting the Baron size here? Do we know how big it is?
It's roughly the size of Nova. It's
gonna
around
be
that
close.
size.
And
it's going to
we
be very
haven't
close.
seen
And
the
Knoebility
Baron
might
yet.
not be able to mulligan because he still has 2 Dawn Banners left in his deck. They're really coming back to bite him here. Does he take the risk? He finds a Dawn Banner.
The thing is, I think he was going to find it one way or the other with the Dijkstra still going to pull some cards. So I really like the mulligan there because it's not like he's not going to draw cards from his deck ever again. So I think you have to take the risk there and go for the high roll.
Oh, and Redrame having a pretty awkward hand. He needs to either swap the Hattori or play his Officer as a 5, and you hate to see that. At the same time, he might actually be better off than Knoebility, and you have an awkward call on whether you want to preserve Dijkstra or Scorch as your last play as well. This is very awkward for both players.
Yeah. This is going to be super interesting. I expect to see players take the full time allotted for their turn. What's he going to do here? Is he going to choose the mulligan?
He's taking the mulligan on the Hattori. What's he find? He finds
another
officer,
one.
So that's just going to be a 5. He has to play that from hand as a 5.
Yeah, but he's only offering up an 8 as a Scorch target right now. Do you think the Dijkstra comes down next turn? Oh, here comes the Nova.
He takes the Nova, and this pulls out the other Cavalry, enables the Dijkstra, enables the Scorch, and Knoebility takes it away. Here's the Scorch, and the Dijkstra will always be enough. It goes to game 3.
We're going to game 3. Knoebility had to be real happy to see that one.
Man.
What a great game
That
there.
was an amazing game. Knoebility proving himself to be a very, very apt Henselt player, and I gotta say, Joe, I want to see this guy on something else.
Yeah. I mean, I want to see if he's as good with some of the other lists that he has brought as he has shown himself to be with the Henselt. He masterfully navigated those 2 games, losing the coin toss in the mirror in game 1 and having some unfortunate draws in game 2, and he's still in a position where he's able to take this match.
Exactly. Henselt is the kind of deck that a lot of players play a lot, and I want to see exactly how well he fares on something else because Knoebility, this is going to be a player I'm going to be keeping my eye out from now on.
Definitely. I completely agree.
Yeah.
So what else does he have here option-wise?
He has, in terms of his other decks, now again, keep in mind we do not know the ban, but his other decks look to be Bruver Hoog and Jan Calvit, so it's going to come down to whichever one Redrame didn't ban out versus, again, Redrame's same deck. It looks like it's going to be the Jan Calvit Alchemy style deck here, Trial of the Grasses included, and this is going to be against the Elf Swarm deck with Nova that Redrame was just playing as we take it to game 3.
So what do you think about this matchup? Is the Alchemy player at a disadvantage because there's no engines to remove, or do you just think what do you feel about it?
I think that typically the Scoia'tael player will be at a bit of an advantage here, but it's going to depend on a lot of factors. We're going to see the Swears in Knoebility's hands, which is not going to hit much value, of course, because it's just a Siriate Nova list. But I think Redrame, in terms of decks, at least at the start, is going to be favored here.
And we see sort of a clunky hand over here from Knoebility. He rightly analyzed that the Swears wasn't going to be super helpful, but you see the 3 Mahawken Elves he started with, and those aren't cards you want in your opening hand. That's something you want your Vikavaro Novices to pull out of your deck.
Yep. And there's the Word Answer immediately followed by that coin, and Redrame is just laughing and putting up the AOK sign. So Knoebility has the Slave Driver. Here's the Sappers.
Yep, and the Sapper's coming down. Look at the position he's in already. He could already pass for a potential +2 cards.
Yep.
Do you think he needs to thin out his deck here, though? Once again, we see the Aileron in his hand, not his deck. Not where he wants it.
Yeah, that's true as well. He might have to. At the same time, though, he does have the Officer coming down as well, and that's just a huge pass by Redrame.
2 cards, 2 cards.
Playing 2 cards to 0, the Word Answer being able to match the value of 2 cards played from a hand by Knoebility. And if Redrame draws his other Word Answer in the next 2 cards of his deck, we're going to see it come down again and block Knoebility's Dry Pass, Joe.
That's quite the strong start there. I mean, that's basically Word Answer at its finest. Does Knoebility have something like a Cantarella in his list to potentially start to make up this card disadvantage?
Yes, we do see a Cantarella in Knoebility's lifts, but he will need to find into it. Now, he has the draws, he has the Calvit, and even potentially the Vilgefortz to do that.
Yeah, the Calvit does have a lot of reach here. I think I think he's going to need some quite powerful draw steps to claw his way back into this one. That's
that is
spicy
a
one.
nice runestone grab in that situation. That's going to put a little 6 strength unit on top of Redrame's deck. This hurts the option for Redrame to draw the War Dancer, lowering the odds very significantly. And it kind of hurts his mulligans as well, because he still is in a position where he needs to mulligan away the Aileron.
Yeah, it's great against hands like this, and the Scoia'tael deck can sort of find itself in these situations when you're running cards like War Dancer and Aileron. A lot of times your mulligans are spoken for, so adding to the tension that you already have in your deck trying to ration out what you're going to mulligan, that can be really powerful here.
Yep. So we see Knoebility off to a start. He's going to play this proactively. He does not want to give the Elf Swarm deck a long round, although because it's Nova, he doesn't want to give it a short round either. I think Nobility's best bet, because of course when you win round 1, you are in the driving seat of how long round 2 is, and consequently how long round 3 is. I think when you are against Redrame's deck, your best bet is actually neither a short nor a long round 3, but a medium-sized round 3, because then you can kind of brick some of the Vanguards, you can brick some of these kind of Snowball Elves, while keeping the Nova as a threat that you can hopefully overcome.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the plan here. Another thing he wants to manage here is to not fall too far behind on tempo, because if Redrame catches on to what's going on, that gives him an opportunity to dump off some of the cards, as we see the lesser Golem in the hand created by the Guardian and the Aileron, and that's one of Nobility's potential wins here, is Redrame having these subpar cards in his hand for round 3, so you don't want to give him a great chance to dump them off.
Yeah, I gotta say, that Guardian grab was absolutely huge for him. I mean, right off the bat, you hate to see that happen with the War Dancer into the Sappers, because just going down 1 card immediately is very bad. But that Guardian could be his saving grace here.
Yeah, we're going to have to see how this one plays out, but it was a huge grab. It's going to impact the game likely all the way into the 3rd round, and Redrame chooses... Yeah, he's just going to buff his hand and take some value in the future rounds. I think he's feeling pretty comfortable here.
Yep. Now, if you know Ability, it all just comes down to exactly what resources you want to expend and what ones you don't. You want to play this round deep. You've got the Mandrake. You want to commit on the Calvite so that you can give your Kahir later full value. You want to commit, of course, the Calvite so that you can Kahir at all. And then take it to a kind of short round, preserving Vilgefortz, preserving Joachim, perhaps the Ale if he's expecting Redrame to play into it.
Yeah, you also want to make sure your graveyard is nice and stocked. Did you see the 2 ointments in the hand of Nobility here? And
there's the
he's
Dragoon. This is
sure.
an indication for the long round.
Yeah, that certainly is an indication for a long round, and he's going to be gaining quite a bit of value off of it. So even if he's going to have fewer cards than his opponent in round 3, if they're all substantially more powerful, that's his window back into this game. It's a good pull for him.
We're going to see the Barclay into Cleaver by Redrame, smashing that Dragoon immediately and catching up in tempo even after the Sappers flips.
Yeah, I think Redrame recognized that the Dragoon was very good for Nobility there, and that was one of his potential ways back into this game, so he just had to remove it immediately.
And that's a huge play, of course. When you can tempo like that, when you can allow yourself to even make these slower plays and still stay ahead, especially when Nobility is going to have to Mandrake. Redrame effectively, by doing that, just made this round all about tempo when it wasn't necessarily going to be, because Nobility is not shy of fast plays himself.
How do you feel about the officers that Redrame is holding? Do you think he should potentially try and mulligan away some of these weaker cards using the officer while giving himself the potential to redraw them in round 3?
I think so as well, yes.
So, yeah, we've got an interesting little gap here. I kind of like developing the Melina in this position, and I'm curious to see what line he chooses to go with here. I think you've seen that your opponent has shown a propensity for a slightly longer round, and you're going to have to squeeze that card in at some point, and now there's a 5 on the board to get full value.
Yeah, Melina is a play that you don't really want to make when you're behind because you'd like to stay ahead, but Redrame is just behind enough that you could commit. You could say, you know, I'm not really getting ahead anyway, might as well play it early, make sure I can stay ahead as soon as that flips in after. But he's going to play the Saskia instead, and this is actually going to be the aggressive play to stay ahead. Redrame is doing effectively, as you put it in one of the previous games, you were saying turn the corner on him or something like that. Redrame is choosing to do that early. This is the aggressive play. This is the play that says, I'm going to stay ahead of you no matter what else you do. He's positioning his units to very effectively deny out this Mahakam Ale and just committing to stay ahead of Nobility on every turn.
Exactly. That's sort of the signpost play of this round. I do not think we're going to see any low tempo plays out of him. I fully expect that play means he will commit to get ahead at every potential chance. There was a school of thought that says, well, you're up 2 cards, you can dump off some of your weaker cards, preserve your stronger ones for round 3, while still maintaining 1 card advantage, and he decided that's not the route for him. He wants to stay up 2 cards.
At the same time, though, this is a matchup where you expect the Alchemy player is not going to necessarily be passing too soon anyway, because typically you see the Mandrake developed first, and typically you don't want to give the Elf player this long of a round 3. We'll have to see how this plays out, but it looks like Redrame, unless the Cantarella somehow manages to be found, which it's not, will be in a just really fantastic position to force us at. And amazing tempo play by Knoebility there.
Yeah, the only way we're going to see the Cantarella is basically going to be off the Vilgefortz, and I expect that to be a card he's thinking about saving. What I'd like to note here is the positioning of the Joachim there, which is basically going to turn on his Foul L, even though it doesn't have the greatest targets in every row. There is a target in every row, and the card is starting to look like it's going to be some reasonable value here.
Yep. And at this point, if you are Redrame, I think you might do the Milena play. He's going for the Elven Mercenary. Does this have a chance of keeping him ahead? It is going to play as the third elf on the board. If he chains into elves, if he chains into enough elves here with the Aileron, it will be enough. That's it. There's the Aileron.
He did it.
Fulfilling the 5 elf and staying ahead even after the huge Joachim play.
Yeah, Aileron is just an incredibly potent tool in these elf decks. Just getting the 6 points out of your deck while effectively lessening the number of cards in your deck, which we commonly refer to as thinning, to hit your more powerful cards. It's just so good. It impresses me time after time.
Another calculated play by Redrame. He sees the Joachim as a sign of desperation. Let me out of this round, get me out of this, and he just makes the play to stay even further ahead. Hugely aggressive, just trying to shut out Knoebility.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear here. That's a really interesting point you bring up. I think both players know what the other player's plan is,
exactly.
And they're keeping this in mind when they make their plays.
That's
This is some very, very good gameplay
When you see
here.
that committal of a Joachim, like playing it early before like any sort of finisher condition, you see it as just like, please let me off the hook here.
Yeah, both players are thinking on the same level here. There's as much of a mental battle going on as
there it is
a
again,
card battle.
another massive tempo play, and Redrame cannot possibly outpace this one. This is a 25-point gap that needs to close. Knoebility is, I mean, he has to be thinking there's no way Redrame can do it, and he is right. Redrame, for the first time in the last several turns, says, okay, I know I can't stay ahead. This is where I drop my Milena.
It's got to be the pass here now, right? He sort of got what he wanted. He forced out one of the cards that he was behind. I fully expect to see the pass here. The Milena's come down. It's got 2 good targets, but there's no world that card's worth 25. There wasn't enough hand buffing going on.
Yep, that's exactly right. And he does, I believe, know it's a Milena as well from the previous game.
Oh, that is very true. He does have that information at this point.
Yep. Well, he knows it's either Milena or Sappers, but he, at the very least, should be very much expecting the Milena. So Knoebility is thinking about exactly how he wants to play this. There's a lot of options. You do want to Mandrake the Calvite in many matchups, but you don't necessarily have the Kahir, and Mandrake is going to find value later. It's also very risky of staying ahead. Here's the Expired Ale. He knows he might not get great value out of this in the next round. That's going to swing for a pretty solid total of 13. The question is, can Redrame stay ahead here? This Milena is flipping for 17, which means he needs, I believe, a 21-point play, and he can't fulfill that criteria without dumping his Nova. It looks like he's thinking about it.
He's considering it. He really values these 2 cards. Him highlighting over that card just shows how important it is to him. Knoebility did take a little bit of a risky play there, but I agree with it. Getting the Foul L out of your hand is just not going to find value. It's not very likely to find value in round 3, particularly after you've already used your Joachim.
Yeah, and there's Redrame just chugging along with his Elven Mercenaries, deploying the board. This will often pull a Recon into an Elven Scout. We'll have to see exactly how this works out. Here's the Recon. This, to me, it looks like an Elven Scout interface.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on here. And I think Redrame has resigned himself to the fact that he's not going to be up 2 cards. So he's back in sort of conserving value for round 3 mode. I think the switch has definitely been flipped.
And the Dragoon puts a bit of pressure on Knoebility, not necessarily in a position of wanting to extend this round in the first place. He knows that Milena is about to flip.
This is interesting here. We're seeing Knoebility not feel like giving this round up. Or does he just think that there's no way this point gap's going to be overcomeable by a single card?
Yeah, I think that's probably what he's thinking here. We see the Milena taking the Slave Driver. It's not going to be denying much reses there, since you still see the Slave Driver in Knoebility's board, ready to go to the graveyard. Redrame has to overcome a massive total here of, again, 26 points, which he can't do even with Nova in this case. But at the same time, he's geared up to go 1 card up into round 3. And this is the kind of medium-sized hand you want to go into round 3 with if you're Knoebility.
Yeah, that size round feels like it would definitely favor Knoebility over Redrame, particularly if there's any universe where he's able to get the 2 cards back and they go on even cards. I think he then becomes a large favorite.
Yeah. I think, though, that it might not be enough. I mean, this is the right size hand you want. It's not necessarily the cards you want. There's the War Dancer jumping into Redrame's hand. Knoebility might know, though, that he has to push and force out the Nova here. It could very well be his option. What do you think his best play is? This is a dicey situation for Knoebility.
This is so close here. Yeah, it is certainly a dicey situation. I don't know. I really don't know. Do you really push here?
Well, you're doomed to go 1 card down into round 3. So you can try to force out the Nova, but even in that case, you're not going to be very well off. You can try to get into the medium-sized round, but with this hand and against Nova, you might not be in a great position either. I think your best bet is to take a pass very soon and hope that the Nova isn't drawn.
Yeah, because if you run the risk, if Redrame ever passes you again, you're just in such bad shape here.
I like the pass here. At the same time, he has the 17-pointer Mandrake. He knows that can't be overcome. Taking the pass. I like this play. It's playing to his outs. I don't know, though, that he has enough of a round 3 plan. We see Redrame in a slightly awkward position. He needs to make 9. That can be done pretty easily with Officer into this Lesser Guardian that he wants to get rid of. Looks like that's probably what he's going to be going for, mulliganing the War Dancer back away for round 3 when that happens, and Redrame is in a great position to take this game away.
Yeah, helping him to fix his hand here is, it's just very, very powerful. Oh, it looks like he goes for the War Dancer there. Yeah. This is done, I believe, to ensure that he can't draw a bad card, right? Because now he has his 1 mulligan to get rid of the Lesser Guardian, and he doesn't have to worry about locking up his mulligan for round 3 on the War Dancer. So he's willing to throw away the 3 points there that he would have otherwise had to prevent potential bad draws going into the, into the 3rd round.
Very safe, and I actually like that. Redrame is in the kind of position where you want to play very safe when you are secure about how you feel in the outcome of the game. When you are in a winning position, you play overly safe because you just play around that lose condition.
Yeah, it's a very conservative line there, but I think it's correct. Or we're still seeing the Lesser Guardian in his hand here.
Yeah, he, I think, was worried about drawing his last card out, the Brewer target, I believe it is.
Ah, that's another factor. Yeah, his hand had so many dimensions to what he couldn't play there.
It's just playing around the same out. Just playing to, even though it's lower value on average, playing to minimize the chance that disaster strikes, because when you're Redrame and you realize you are in such a dominant position here, you play to just minimize disaster, even if it's less points on average.
Yeah, you feel like you only lose to complete bricks, so minimizing the chances of complete bricks is effectively going to increase your win rate here.
Yeah, and that exactly is the truly the sign of a good player, because you are able to not just play for average points on value, but to play for conditions and probabilities.
I completely agree. I'm taking a look at the list here to see, is that Isengrim still live?
I don't believe so. I think it's just the there's the second Sappers.
There's a second Sapper.
The second Sappers.
Okay, yeah, there has to be 2 because of Nova.
Yep. So here's the Officer mulliganing away the Mandrake, knowing he's not
There's
going
the
to get
Kahir.
value.
That is
Kahir is
draw.
pretty good. He will be able to res his Calvite with this, but does he have enough points to take this away? The Isengrim is alive. Redrame's Brewer is alive. He has the Nova out in his hand. He's playing very, very carefully, and I like it.
I like it a lot as well. I do think this is going to be pretty close, though. Kahir represents a ton of points with the proper pull off of Jan Calvate, and we're also looking at Trial of the Grasses being a solid 20-point slam here.
Yeah. I think Redrame has enough to take away with this game, and I think it's extremely well-deserved. I mean, just the discipline to be able to play that much carefully, risking basically giving up on a lot of value just to minimize just even a 4 or 5% risk that something doesn't go your way. Just saying, I'm okay with this 6-point bronze. I don't care. It's enough to win.
Yeah, both players have really put on a clinic here. This is some great play we're watching here.
Okay, so the Calvate has the option for the Viper Witcher or the Novice. He's going to take the Witcher. He's going to slam that 7-point elf. This is going to swing his favor back, but he is a full card down, and this Trial of the Grasses will get less value than Siri Nova as well.
That's true, but look at the diminished value on, what's that, 6 string? the bronze card in Redrame's hand.
It's the Rehead Vanguard.
The Rehead Vanguard,
Yes.
my apologies. Yeah, look, it's not getting a ton of value here, so removing that elf also had the additional bonus of peeling a point off of that effectively. That card that Redrame is up isn't exactly a large card.
Yes, that is true. But the Brewer representing the Hattori, I believe, in addition to the Nova, will make a big swing. He has the face-down Sapper for 11, and the Viper Witcher is not getting a target off of it. The Sapper is not yet played, and that is giving him good value here. He is preserving an extra 3 points from that Witcher not being able to target the Sapper.
Yeah, I, once again, really like the play here. This has just been an awesome series. We are getting close to the conclusion one way or another. This game will end the match. Who's going to come out on top here? We see the Hattori coming down. It looks like we're going to go for an Elven Scout.
Yes, Elven Scout. Into whatever gives him the most value. You play for points this round. It looks like, is this a Hawker Healer or some other buff target? Could be the Mahakam Guard as well. Basically, just playing for it. There's the Healer.
There is the Healer.
And it's going to come down to Redrame's 11-point flipping, the Vanguard being played. Knoebility's 15 on top of that, but it's just not going to be enough. It looks like Redrame has this.
Yeah, I don't think the numbers work out in Knoebility's favor here. Both players have played very well, and unfortunately, one of them's always got to lose. That's just how these games work.
Yeah, I'm really liking this just calm and collected play coming out of Knoebility.
Yeah, this is great here. He's trying to think about all of the potential options. Should he be saving the Witcher? Does he think he's getting more points out of it? What could he be playing into? He's probably thinking about a world where Redrame doesn't have access to the Syria Nova, because that's probably a world where he can win. So he's considering his outs.
Yep. So here's the Viper Witcher. Again, it feels very bad, of course, because you are losing additional value on that Cypress. You can kill the Brewer or one of the 6 strength elves. It's all the same with the Vanguard in play. He's deciding whether he wants the trial now and just avoid playing around any sort of Scorch or any effects entirely, or just play this out now. I think that he is playing around the condition that Redrame's hand is both Shiru and Siri Nova, because then Redrame has to play the Nova first, and then he risks Shiruing himself, which would cause him to Shiru Epidemic here. I like that play from Knoebility.
Yeah, it's very
subtle, but by sacrificing the value on that Viper Witcher, hitting something that's not the Sappers, most people would just play the trial, because you don't have last play, you don't care about developing a big unit. He played for an amazing condition there, and it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, that's it. Redrame's going to take it down. Both players played phenomenally in that matchup. I hope they continue to do well in this tournament. We get to see some more from them later.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's the subtle plays like that, really, that just define a good player.
So
and
impressive.
It didn't work out for him in this case, but you know, just by looking at it, evaluating the full situation, he played to his outs just like Redrame did. You play assuming that the opponent has kind of a breakable hand, something that might cause you to win, and Redrame played the opposite, playing to, avoid the lose condition. Redrame playing overly safe and
yeah, I completely agree. Both players knew their role in that matchup. They knew who had to play conservative and who had to play a little bit looser.
Exactly.
And sort of